Good afternoon, everyone. It's 2 o'clock. So today in this presentation, we are going to cover how to tell if your agent used the right stuff. Just an introduction about myself. My name is Apurva Misra. I'm from Vancouver, Canada. And my background is in machine learning before LLMs, ChatGPT came into the picture, so classical machine learning. And right now, I am an independent AI consultant. So I do a lot of consulting for small and medium-sized companies and enterprises sometimes. And a lot of that also involves educational work, like running workshops, teaching them how to use Claude Code, all of that stuff. And yeah, I'm also an aspiring gym person because it seems like, at least in North America, it seems we are all going to lose our jobs. So I'm just making sure I can do the physical work. Okay, let's get started. And I might be disappointing a lot of you. It's almost a full room. You cannot tell if your agent used the right stuff. But what you can do is make sure you tried your best. So we'll come to that at the very end. But the whole presentation is going to go about we are going to cover single turn LLM applications, then we're going to move into single agent systems, then we're going to move into multi-agent systems, and then finally how do you solve this problem? Okay, so a single, okay, before we get started, how many of you are software developers? What are the rest? Data science, the other ones, data science, machine learning, AI. Okay, how many of you have worked with LLMs or AI models? Cool. How many of you have built agents? How many of them have gone into production? Okay, good. A good number, actually. Single-turn LLM application. So this LLM, I'm using LLM as a generic term as any AI model. This could be, you have the large audio models, you have the large vision models, and now with Google I/O, which happened a couple of weeks ago, they released Google Omni, multimodal systems. They were existing before as well, Google introduced their own system. But anyway, so you have an AI model in the middle, and you are giving it an input, you're getting an output out of it. That's a single-turn LLM application. If you think about a RAG system, if you guys have worked with RAG system before, they are also sort of like these. So you have the embedding model, that's single turn, you give an input, you get the embedding out. Then the generation system, which is you give the context in, it gives you the answer that should be sent to the user. Okay, so the problem here is hallucination and misinterpretation. You see that a lot when you're using these AI models. Doesn't matter if it's audio, doesn't matter if it's just text-based. So what I mean by hallucination is you have given it some context that it should use to answer the query, but given the query, it just makes up facts which weren't present in the context. So it could be a fact which is true in the real world, but you wanted to say the capital of France is Vancouver and not Paris, and it should have answered that, right? But it used its own knowledge or whatever, and it answered something else, and you wanted to stick to the context. The other thing, misinterpretation could be, this you might have experienced a lot if you are working with enterprises. These companies have so much of their own proprietary context. So if they have to build an AI system, they have to give it a lot of context in their system prompt explaining what they do. So for example, a trucking company, so you have to explain what a trucking company does. It's a two-sided marketplace, which is matching truck drivers with shippers. Then you have brokers in the middle. What do brokers do? What are DOT numbers? That's in the US. Basically, every truck has its own unique ID. Then there are those insurance numbers. So you have to explain a lot of context. And sometimes these models misinterpret those facts which were present in the. So it knows what a DOT number is, but it wouldn't use it correctly. So there's a misinterpretation there. Okay, so these are the cases that can happen. So by retrieval quality, I would mean to say, in a RAG system, we use the term retrieval quality, but it's just are you providing the right context? And what I mean by context is any system, doesn't matter what system, what agent, single turn, you are building the context to give to the LLM or the AI model. That is what your harness or the system around the model is, you building the context to give to the model for each loop that it runs. We'll come to agents anyway, but basically, if your context is correct and your reasoning quality, the model's strength is good, it can understand the context and reason correctly over it, you'll get the right answer, right? But if your context is wrong, and even if you use the best model out there, you use Sonnet Opus 4.8 will cost you a lot, but still you will get hallucination and guessing because you did not provide it the right context for that particular task that it needed to do. Then you can have the case in which the context is good, but you use like a smaller model, an open source model, whatever, like a simpler model which doesn't have the reasoning capability to go over the context for that particular task, And then you have like ignored evidence and you get the wrong answer. So these are like 3 cases that can happen, and how you would like go around figuring out like, is it really like using the right things from the context? One of the things you can use is contradiction probing. What I mean by that, that is like you give it fact A and you see like how it behaves. Then you give it like fact B, which is like contradictory to fact A, and you try to figure out like how it works in those situations. This could also like help you figure out where it's paying attention. And what I mean by that is like all these models, basically the underlying technology here is transformers. This was a paper released by Google in 2017, like attention is all you need. So you have to figure out how it's paying attention because they have like a certain attention span. I'll cover that paper later in a slide. But anyway, there are other methods you can use. One is citation gating. So basically like, requiring every claim to be tied to a snippet ID or citation. This, a lot of these companies like Anthropic, OpenAI have inherently introduced it. You just have to enable that in the API when you're using it. The other thing is attribution checks. What I mean by that is like if it gave the answer or if it added a fact in the answer, what you can ask it is like, where did you pull it from? Exactly where. It's not just like this document. It could be like that particular paragraph or that sentence. So these companies, again, have this built in. So what they do is they pull like the initial character it used and the last character, and it'll pull like the correct sentence for that particular fact, And then you can, and here also there's hallucination, by the way. So there are issues, but these are systems. So you can build it, you can build your system using their technology that these companies are providing. Because there are only very few companies out there who are training their own models because it's very expensive. Okay, the next one is stress testing the truth through counterfactual removal. So what I mean by that is you have like 3 facts in the context. What you can do is you can remove one fact and see how the answer changes. This is very similar to like contradictory, like you're removing a fact and seeing like how the answer changes. And you would also find here is like sometimes if that fact is in the beginning or is in the middle, maybe it's not even using it, So you have to figure out how your answer is changing, and that is through like counterfactual removal. Okay. The baseline is basically we do not understand these models. So this is a paper in which what they were trying to test was, if you have used, I'm pretty sure all of you have used these AI assistive tools, Claude Code, GitHub Copilot, which is very expensive now. But what they were trying to figure out was these agent.md files or claude.md files, these instruction files that we give, like how good are these models at using it. So what they tried to do was they had a developer-generated instruction file. They had a LLM-generated instruction file, so we were using the model to generate it. And then we had a case in which we gave no instructions for this coding assistive tool. And what they found was there was really no difference. Actually, the model performed better with no instructions, and it used 20% less tokens. But among the developer-generated file and the coding agent-generated, it performed better, just marginally better with the developer-generated. But the best was to not give any instructions. That is how little we know about these models. The other case was, what they found was, like, we keep saying about like how it's a U attention span. We don't know if it goes on for really long, it might not be paying attention for what you mentioned in the middle. What they found was if you just repeat the prompt twice, it just performs better at a task, as simple as that. And then this context shot. So what they were trying to figure out was these companies, like they come every 2 weeks with like a new model saying, oh, this new model works really well on this benchmark and our context window is like 1 million. So what they were trying to test was, is it really 1 million? Can you actually do real tasks with it? Because haystack, you would have heard like needle in the haystack task. It's not a real task, The whole context would be about, I don't know, I think they took like Paul Graham's essays and they put like something about sandwich in there. Like tasks are not like that. Like they were trying to test it on real tasks. And what they found was around 40% of what they mention as the context window is actually used by the model. The rest of it is just ignored or it's not correctly used. So yeah, we don't know much about the models. So we have to like figure out how we can, and we are not the ones who can tweak the model. These companies are the ones making them and we have to use them in our system. So we have to figure out how we can build a system around it to make it like useful and reliable. So moving on to agentic systems. So agentic systems, basically like you have the one-tone application in that you have the looping now, right? You have looping, you have memory, you have planning, so it can break down complex tasks into smaller pieces, and then you have tools. So it can call like the weather API, and like if you're just using ChatGPT, basically, it's an agent. It has access to web search. So it basically decides itself if Apurva asked about the Iran war, it knows it has to go do web searches because in its training data, it didn't have anything because it was like very recent, right? So it figured that out. It used the tool, and then it'll keep doing web searches till it's satisfied. So that's the looping piece. Okay, so when we come to single agent failures, so we were talking about one-to-one application, and we talked about hallucination and misinterpretation. With single agent failures, you have more like added on issues with it. One is like blindness, it'll like wrong chunk, wrong version, missing documents. So it could just be like an issue with your retrieval, or it would just ignore it. The next is like distraction. So you might be putting in too much information in there, or it might be doing it itself. It might be doing like multiple web searches and pulling too much information than what the context can handle. Next is like confusion. Like sometimes it does an API call, or it does like a CRM query. It gets inputs and it doesn't understand what those particular columns mean. You know, if your Excel sheet doesn't have good column names, it'll have those issues. And then you have like technical breaks. So a tool output would be messed up. Or sometimes what happens is even if the tool output is correct, it doesn't know how to, which is the confusion piece. Then the timing issue, sometimes the context arrives too late. This is actually a bigger issue in multi-agent systems. But like sometimes what will happen is these agents might be doing parallel queries to different systems. And if one of those things arrives late, the answer would be wrong. And you would be like, when does this happen? If you have used voice agents, they do parallel queries because they have to be very quick with answering just so that the call seems real time. They do like parallel queries to like different tools. Okay, the next one is the decay. So it could be the case that the knowledge base is outdated. So this, if you have built a RAG system, you know about this. Like, so processing all the documents and putting them in a vector DB costs a lot because there are so many documents you're processing using an embedding model. But then what you also notice is these documents change over time, and you have to keep updating those. So the one thing would be like, people are still trying to research this piece. Like, do you want to like update the whole document embedding? Do you want to like update just the chunk of it? But anyway, so the decay is also a big problem, especially with like enterprise use cases. Okay, moving on to multi-agent systems, I would say do not build multi-agent systems unless it's very necessary. But the times you would want to build a multi-agent system is context protection. So what I mean by that is, just going back. So we were talking about the distraction piece, right? Over retrieval. A multi-agent system would help with this. So it might be like the system prompt is too big, you're explaining too much about the trucking company, and then it's like doing API calls. You're making it do like a lot of like, giving it access to a lot of tools and like the user query, and the task is really complex. What you can do is you can have sub-agents specialized on different tasks. So if it has to just work with documents, give that sub-agent access to get, read, summarize, whatever, read, write. Then you can have a sub-agent just focused on working with GitHub. Then you can have a sub-agent just so you can make sure like those sub-agents have access to the specific tools they need. The other piece here is, which is not relevant to this presentation, I'll just add, like, you guys might have heard of skills. Anthropic, you introduced that. So basically, it's the tech behind that is called progressive disclosure. So instead of like giving it all the context about all the different tools, it would figure out, I am in need of this particular tool, tell me more about this, like what arguments are needed. But anyway, going back to multi-agent system, like context protection is one thing. So you are making a firewall between like different sub-agents. You have context to this and these tools. Then the next thing is parallelization. So I want to build an SDR agent which helps me do marketing in different regions, in Southeast Asia, in Europe, in North America. So I would want to do it in parallel. So I would like to use a multi-agent system there. Next would be specialization. It's very similar to context protection in the sense like you give those tools and the context, which is like specialized to those things. So like the diagram basically shows like once you start doing this, it's going to get messier because the path that it chooses to do a certain task, you would not know that. It's not deterministic. It can decide to call subagent A. It might decide to call subagent B. It might call, and subagent B might call tool A. And like the path for like the same query would be different every single time. And you might be getting the same answer. So the evaluation piece becomes harder. Okay, so moving on to multi-agent failures. Like this is, there are so many failures, but this is like context relevant failures. So you can have like stale shared memory. So what happens with multi-agent systems is, it depends on how you design it. If you can have a decentralized systems or decentralized system as well. But like mostly right now, what's in production is basically there is this state of the system that every sub-agent or agent has access to, okay? And like, it could be the case that, think about a nanny agency agent, okay? A nanny agency matches parents with, I'm just taking examples of all the like consulting I've done, so it's random. But basically a nanny agency matches parents with nannies, okay? And there could be a case a nanny is available when a sub-agent accesses that memory, and another sub-agent accesses the memory and the nanny is unavailable because like the nanny got booked right in those like 2 seconds or whatever. So a stale shared memory, like both of them don't have access to the same memory. The next could be like handoff loss. It's basically like similar to telephone game, like as it does more summarization, there's compression happening and you might be losing facts. This is like I think the Chinese telephone game. So basically like, as it happens in humans as well, right? If one person tells it to the other person, tells it to the next person, the facts would change over time. Then you have the role confusion. It's basically like you didn't give it enough context when explaining you are the researcher, you are the executor, and these are your tasks. Sometimes they're like very, very similar. You didn't do like enough division between the sub-agents and their context, and they might get confused on what they're supposed to do. And the next one is parallel disagreement, which can use the same example as the stale shared memory. Like those sub-agents would have like different results. They would be like, okay, the nanny Sarah is available. The other one would be like, the nanny Sarah is unavailable, you know? This is just like going deeper in it, like, this is what it looks like if it goes in a chain, like this is how you lose the facts. And this is the shared state. So I was talking about, like you have one shared state and all the agents are accessing it. So conflicting evidence, yeah, I think I pretty much covered this. Okay, so going on, I'm just gonna like take an example. I think Claude Code is the most successful agent out there. Like Anthropic is going to be profitable, I think, next month. They're going to IPO anyway. So I feel like this is the agent which has been doing really well, and it's used by so many people. So this is what their system looks like. So lucky for us, their code got leaked, and this is from the paper. They covered all of like what was in the code. So this is what the complete system looks like, you know. So you as a user, like think of it as a terminal, but there are so many ways you can communicate with Claude Code. But basically there's an interface, you're sending a request in, there's this agentic loop. Have you guys heard of React? So React is like, that is what is happening there. So what React is like, given the user input, I will think about it, I'll see what I can do, then I'll do the tool calls, see what was the observation of the tool calls, like whatever the result was, and then think about like, what should I do next? And I'll keep going on in that loop till it gets the right answer. That's what Claude Code does, right? Till it like makes the website for you completely, it doesn't respond to you. Or otherwise it'll like bother you with permission. So they have the permission system. So if you don't, like what I do is dangerously skip permission. If you don't do that, it'll keep coming and bothering you with like, can I run this UV command? Can I run this command? Yeah, so they have the permission system. They have like a bunch of tools they've given it access to. Then there's the execution environment, and then there's the state and persistence. So this is actually the most important piece, the state and persistence. If you actually go through this paper or go through the code, this thing runs, I think I cover it, yeah. So this is even more in detail, that whole system. This piece, this runs after each iteration in that agentic loop. Every single time that loop comes back, there would be a context formation. Okay, about the long-term memory, it would be like Apurva likes to use PyTest when she writes test cases in Python. Then this could be long-term memory. Short-term memory could be she's building a website. Then the runtime memory would be like what is happening right now. Then it could be like in the Claude MD, I might have given it like more instructions about the project. Then there could also be the sidechain transcriptions are basically like what were the tool calls that have happened till now. So like it looks at all of that and decides what should the context be in this iteration. So this happens every single time, and it's pretty complex. So think if people say Claude Code is slow, like in in every iteration, there's a lot of things that's happening. Even in the permission system, that permission layer, it looks at like what mode I'm running it in. So in Claude Code, you have auto mode as well. You have dangerously skip permissions. So like there are different modes I could be running it in. There could be different policy of my company. And it also looks at like what had happened in the past. So they have the what do you call it? The growing trust system. So if I let it run one UV command, maybe it is allowed to run all the other UV commands. So like in every single run, there's like a whole system around that agent loop, which makes Claude Code like very, very useful. And the whole system is now called Harness, and it's called Harness Engineering. So basically, like if we want, this is relevant to Claude Code, basically a coding agent. So if we wanted to work with real data durably, we have to give it access to the file system. If we wanted to run on the long horizon work, you will have to like make it do Ralph loops, planning, verification. Ralph loop is also sort of like React, but for a higher level, for the agent. I have given it a task. The agent will keep running till it like satisfies that task. That's all a Ralph loop is. So if I wanted to like access new knowledge, remember something, it needs to have memory files, web search, MCPs. So basically like building that whole system around that agent or the model to make it work as an agent. But what I'm trying to convey from this is, all of the system, everything is just to figure out what context to provide to the model. Like the permission system is to tell it like, now you cannot run. Like every single loop, we are just iterating on the context. Okay. So the issue is, again, because we don't understand these models, even Claude Code is not perfect. So there is this company out there, this is just a screenshot from their website. Like what they say is like, you might have noticed this as well. Sometimes Claude just ignores your Claude.md file, and they have built this graphical system which will enforce after every iteration, like, was it allowed to call this tool? What was the context that was passed in? Maybe they're just hoping there is no PII, whatever. So this company does that. So what I'm saying is the most successful agent out there still has issues, because these models have issues. Okay, so what you can do is you can improve the observability in your system. So what I would want you to do, and this is an example of like when you have an agentic systems, you would want to like save the user query, you would want to save the rewritten query. So what I mean by rewritten query is, especially in a RAG system, like a customer support bot, if it's on a knowledge documentation, the conversation might be going on for really long. You might, like after a while, you might want to rewrite each query because it might be relevant to the conversation going on, right? He or she, the user, might have mentioned something in the beginning which might be relevant to this query. So every single run, you might be rewriting the query. So save that in there. Save the retrieval parameters. So if you're using a vector DB or like a normal SQL, like you want to save everything. What was the environment state at that point of time when the agent was running? You want to save the retrieved items. In that, you want to save the documents as well as the metadata about the retrieved item, like who was the owner of that item, when was it last updated, all of that. You want to save all of that. You want to save the final assembled context. And what I mean by this is just one run. And your agent would do like 6 of these before it gives the answer. So it just gets a bit complex. Basically, you just have more logs to go through. And you would want to save the tool calls. You want to save all the outputs of the tool calls. Sometimes also, even Claude has this. What they have is a tool output budget. So I don't want to see the whole response. One thing they do is like limit how much like a summarized response of a tool call, because sometimes the tool call gives you like a bigger answer and that'll mess up the context. And sometimes what they see is the tool call, it does like multiple tool calls. So they put like a budget, like how you can just spend $2 on the web searches, not more than that. So they have like stuff like that as well in Claude Code. And then like save the final answer and any confidence signals. Like if you're using similarity in your vector DB, you might want to save the confidence scores. Okay, what this lets you do is it tells you in every single iteration, not just like the run of every single task your agent is doing has multiple iterations, and you want to save that for every iteration. And every iteration needs context arrangement or management, whatever, the context creation that goes into the brain. And all of that logging helps you figure out like what really went into the context. Because what is happening inside the model, we do not know. Nobody knows. There's research being done about that. And we honestly, even if we can figure out what's happening, we cannot change it if it's not aligned to our needs. We cannot change it because we are not the ones creating these models. What we can do is we can change the system around it. Okay, so for a single agent system, you might want to check the retrieval quality, noise, stale documents, check the reasoning of your model, because it's simpler. But with a multi-agent system, because you have like multiple agents, you would look at the roles as well, you look at the handoffs. So in a multi-agent system, it becomes the logging becomes a bit more complex, because even in like one iteration, there would be like one agent, then it can be calling like two different agents, and those could be calling like three different agents. So like, and that is like one single loop. And within that agent, there's like more looping that's happening. So it's sort of nested. So you want to save all of that, the handoffs. And you can use transition matrices to like figure out between like which tool calls failures are happening. So what I mean by that is, if you know about heat maps, at least the data science people would know about it. So you would put the from state, like from which tool call to which tool call there were failures. The column would be the tools, the previous tool names, and the first row would be the next tool names. And then it'll just like plot those and figure out like from which transition the most failures happen. Because think about it, like there's so many things happening in a multi-agent system, right? Every sub-agent is calling like multiple tools. Okay, so the other thing also with agentic system is, this is like the evaluation piece. You need to figure out, at least if you're building a system, if you're building a coding system, you are sort of the domain expert, because most of you are from the software background. But like if I'm building, like I was talking about, something with a nanny agency, and I'm building a customer support agent for them, I'll have to sit down with a domain expert and figure out what is success for them. For them, maybe just like having a conversation, it doesn't matter where it goes, it's success. Or maybe what they want is, they want a booking to happen in each of those conversations. So that's a success for them. Sometimes it's like, they're okay with like partial success. Okay, the agent called this tool, and actually the booking happened in the database, but the email did not go to the parent, but I'm okay with this. At least the database was updated, And you can also sometimes, there are issues with, like, you might have put like a check in your evaluation suite in which you are checking for 2.98 is equal to this. And it's just like, because what I'm getting at with this, the last point is, these models are not deterministic. So don't put very, very hard checks, something like that. Don't put something like that, because those two numbers are pretty much the same. I don't know how much accuracy you need in your system. So you have to like sit down with the domain expert, trying to figure out like what is okay, what is not okay, what is good, what is not good. Especially given the fact these models are not deterministic. Like even if you build the evaluation suite, you should be calling the same query like 5 times and seeing. So there is this pass at k. Like you have to figure out like what is that number? Are they okay with that number? Because if you run it once, it'll give you the right answer. If you run it the second time, it'll give you the wrong answer. So you have to figure out like what is okay. Like if it is a success 4 out of 5 times, that's good for you. And like things to remember, like when you build your evaluation suite, is make your task not ambiguous. Like be very, very specific about what you need. And what should the answer be? What are you looking for? Okay. And then you can check the answer with like coding evals, which were like normal software engineering, what existed before, like AI. You're doing assertions. The other would be LLM as a judge, if you've heard about that. But before that, you have to figure out what task you're trying to do and what is the expected result. Then in your golden data set, when you're building that evaluation suite, have correct answers and have the wrong answers as well. So like what I'm saying is, you should have what doesn't work in your system currently. So you have a North Star that you're working towards. So for example, Notion has a bunch of queries or tasks that the system doesn't do, but that is the North Star. So every time a new model comes, every time they update their harness, they'll test it against that evaluation suite and figure out like, is this new GPT 5.5 model improving our system? Like, what's the regression like, Is there any regression? Then make sure the environment, every time you run it, is consistent. The DB has the same values. I've seen so many people make that mistake. So like, be very specific about that. And please give your system an escape hatch. So let it give I don't know as an answer. It's because these models, they have been trained, like being from a machine learning background, like I was doing training when it was affordable of models. So they have been trained, these ones, they have been trained so that they just give an answer. That is what they were trained on. They were rewarded when they were giving an answer. So even that's why they do hallucination. If it doesn't have the facts to give you an answer, it just make up facts to give you the answer. Because they were trained to do that. So just like let them say I don't know the answer, or but you can always, like, whenever it says I don't know the answer, you can like make it better before you give it to the user, we'll connect you with a human or whatever. Okay, and why this is important is, have you guys heard about Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index? So it's like a benchmark that these companies test their models against, and they have like a bunch of tasks. In that, you can like go to their website. They at the bottom they have like tasks as well that they have defined. But basically, this new model came out. It's called Qwen 3.7 Max. This one, the orange one, 56.6. The image is very anyway. So I'm just like, look at this one, the 56.6, the fifth one from the left. This new model came out, and if you have heard about Qwen series, these models have been pretty good. Till now, they were pretty much open source, and now they have become closed source. This model did really well compared to all the other proprietary, really good models. And why it did really well was it excels at delivering correct output, partly by declining to respond more often than peers. Because in the benchmark, they actually check, like, is it declining when it doesn't know the answer, or is it like hallucinating? And this one knows when to decline. So you need to also do it in your system. Like, you give it that opportunity to say, I do not know. Okay, so finally, most failures are context failures. Log the final assemble context. And this is so easy to say, but like as the system becomes more complex, there are so many times it's actually assembling the context so many times if you're using a multi-agent system. And use attribution checks to verify grounding. And this, you can use it. I actually wanted to show you guys something. So this is Notebook LM. Notebook LM is Google's product. It lets you like add sources. So if you see the left side, those are the sources. It lets you add sources, and you can talk to it about those sources, and you can also build like a bunch of artifacts with those sources. So you can have like an audio. So if you have like a bunch of academic papers you want to go through, you can create podcasts with that. If you I like listening to stuff instead of like reading stuff. So you can create like a podcast, you can create videos, you can do like a lot of things, different artifacts. You can do that with Notebook LM. And what they did recently was, this is like 2 days ago or a day ago, they added what I was talking about, citations. So like after it builds like the artifact, it tells you which documents it used. And today, they added agentic system. So you can add sources, you can add like a bunch of academic papers, but also you can tell it like, go look, I'm researching about Berlin. You can also go look up documents, and you give it the permission, like, are you okay with like adding those sources? And it'll add those sources, and it'll create artifacts with that, and it'll tell you like what all it used when creating those artifacts. So this is at a high level. It's just telling you which documents it used. Then at a lower level, you can, for example, in Claude, you can actually ask like what sentence, what paragraph, like initial character to like the last character, what it used to build the answer. So that's what I mean by attribution checks. And yeah, you can connect with me, scan the QR code. You can actually sign up for my newsletter if you want, if you're very overwhelmed by what's happening in the AI world. Any questions? We have 7 minutes.
Yeah, plenty of time.
Did it all make sense?
Thank you for the presentation. Like, I was curious if you could talk a bit, like, do you have an experience like deploying agentic systems in production? Because you were asking this question, and I noticed that there were not like too many hands in the audience. So, like, could you talk a bit about that?
Sure. So I would say, like, even if you're just starting with building agents or like exploring this field, start with evaluation suite. So what that lets you do is, it lets you think about your agent. Like, what do you want the agent to be able to do? What capabilities do you want it to solve? So how you would start with an evaluation suite would be like, you would give it query. Like, this is the query or the task that it's supposed to do, and this is the answer that it's supposed to get. And like what tools I need to give it access. So like depending on task or like customer support agent, like whatever you're building, it could be input, could be anything, and and that way you can like figure out what tools I have to give it access to, what context I have to give, and that is how I would want you to start. Like start very, very simple. Just start with a single agent, give it access to tools, give it access to context, and see how it's doing. And do like all the, if you're an enterprise, like you have to like look at permission, access, and all of that, and see how it's doing. If it's not doing well, and that is where you would wanna like break it into like smaller systems. You would wanna have sub agents, depending on if you think context is the issue. It's too much for the model to handle, and you are at the best model. Start with the best model, and then start dropping down. That is how I work. So this is my personal opinion. So I start with the best model and then start decreasing. So if I'm starting working with the company, it costs them a lot in the beginning. But then like you can go to like sometimes like you can open source models are so good right now. You can just use an open source model. They're like a couple of months behind the closed source model. I actually have one more slide. So this is like how you would, because I think evaluation is really important. This presentation is not about that, but this is like the whole flow of how you would go around like doing the evaluation, okay? So what I want you to do is like any system you're building, sit down with the domain expert you're building it with. What this lets you do is let them have some skin in the game, because I've seen companies build something, throw it to the people, and they wouldn't use it. So you have to figure out how it's currently done, what is needed to be like what's needed when they're doing it manually, and how you can automate that piece. So sit with them and then figure out like take like a bunch of queries. I was saying like start with that, a bunch of queries. What's the answer that's supposed to be? Cluster them if there's so many queries, and then like find like a group from like each cluster and maybe the edge cases, and use that in your golden data set. And that is how you'll make the evaluation suite like when your system is in production. But like even in the beginning, even if you haven't built anything, this lets you, when you go through the data, this lets you think like what are the possibilities? What are the tools? What can be the issues? And this also lets you figure out a rubric towards to build for, like for a nanny agency system. Like when I sat down with them, like tone was important to them, because parents, like frustrated parents were coming to them. Tone was really important. So I had to use LLM as a judge for one of the evaluations. Then the other thing that was important to them was also like constraints, like nanny who is allergic to dogs should not be assigned to a family with like 2 golden retrievers, So you have to sit down with it, because at this point, it's so easy to write code. Just give it to Claude Code. It can write. So where your intelligence comes in is like you sitting down with the domain expert, learning from the expert, figuring out what is needed, and building towards it. Because like if I go deeper now, like Pydantic AI is one framework that you can use, which is really popular. BAML is another one. You guys should check it out. I use that a lot. It's BAML. Really good, very Pythonic, structured. So there are so many frameworks which make it really easy. Like they have like high-level stuff, like human in the loop, everything. They have temporal. Temporal basically lets you do is like if there's a human in the loop, human has to give a permission, and it's Friday and the human is gone for the weekend. The human can come back on Monday and say yes, and the whole flow would continue. And it wouldn't cost you anything, because they save everything till now that has happened in a DB, and don't do the LLM calls again, and just continue from there. So what I'm saying is like there are tools and frameworks and everything existing out there which will make your life very, very easy if you want to build the agent. But to build an agent which people would use, that is what you're trying to do, right? From which you can get ROI. Like understand the evaluation suite, understand what the domain expert needs. Does this make sense? I went into another tangent, but like I added this slide because I feel evaluation is really important. Like think about it.
Another question? Yeah.
Maybe a follow-up question on the evaluation. Do you have any suggestion on which library we could use to execute this kind of evaluation?
Honestly, you don't need, I would suggest not to use any of those vendor libraries, because what they're selling you is like truthfulness score, helpfulness score. And what do they mean? Like they don't mean anything. A number between like 1 and 10, like what do you mean by helpfulness, And you, again, like you have to sit with the domain expert and figure out what are the metrics they care about and what does a score mean. And when you don't use LLM as a judge and tell it to give a score between 1 and 10, please do not do that. Because for them also, it's very subjective. It doesn't understand what 7 means, you know? So just ask it to give you binary output, pass or fail. That's about it. Just do that. So don't use any vendor libraries. You can just use an Excel sheet. Write down the bunch of like task queries, whatever. Write down what's the expectation. If you have a system, run it through the system, see what the trace was like. Sit with the domain expert and mark each one of them. Pass, fail, why, pass, fail. And then work towards, like some of those fixes would be so easy because the arguments were wrong that was sent to the tool call or something. Fix those. The other ones, you would have to work on the system. And then like pick up the important ones from there, like covering all the clustering piece, like covering all the different, like you would want to like cluster them. Or you can also like do it if you can find the patterns. It's called axial coding. If you are in UX research, that's the terminology. So you find the clusters, pick out a few of them, and you make the golden data set. And why you would want to have like passing and failing? Passing, because you like every time you update your system, the prompt updates or the model updates, you want to see if regression is happening or not, you know? And I think it's 2:40.
All right. So let's thank our speaker. Thank you.